Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the football betting series here on YouTube, FA Cup edition. Before we get into the predictions for today's episode, I just want to have a quick disclaimer to say that the Cup is an unpredictable beast and this episode is being recorded way ahead of time. As such, the odds are unknown at the time of recording, but I will add them to a pinned comment down below once the bookmakers have sorted out their odds. Also, any big injuries or a drastic drop-off of form will not really be accounted for today, so please take this with a pinch of salt when looking into my picks, and always gamble responsibly. As such, with the Cup being unpredictable, I'm going to be backing all of my selections for a half stake of £20, and that's how I'm gambling responsibly today. Anyway, if you think I'm talking some sense in today's episode, please drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more content. Without further ado, let's get into it. We kick things off with Aston Villa playing host to Tottenham Hotspurs, and the Villains reached round 4 of the FA Cup with their win over West Ham in what was Graham Potter's debut in the dugout for the Irons. Paqueta opened the scores after 9 minutes, in a first half in which Aston Villa didn't record a single shot, let alone one on target. However, Emre worked his magic in the dressing room at half-time, with Aston Villa taking control of the match in the second period, taking 16 shots with 5 of these efforts on target, but most importantly, 2 big goals in a 5-minute span, thanks to Andre Onana and Morgan Rogers, with 2-1 being the final score. They host a Spurs side who really struggled in the previous round away at National League Tamworth. The Lily Whites needed extra time in order to prevail, with their superior conditioning showing in the 3-0 win. Not the best performance for Tottenham Hotspurs, but they have made it into the next round nonetheless. When we look at the head-to-head record, the previous meeting between these sides took place on matchday 10 of the Premier League. Spurs ran out 4-1 winners, overturning a first-half Morgan Rogers goal in order to claim all 3 points. Stats-wise, there was a fair amount of action in the game, with both teams combining for 28 shot attempts, 7 on target, and a combined XG of 4.30. That result also made it back-to-back wins for Spurs over Aston Villa, with Villa winning each of the 3 before then. My prediction for today's game is this match is a hard one to call. The recent head-to-head would have you backing Spurs, but on the road, in the Cup, days after the Carabao second leg semi-final, no, there's just too many factors there for me to confidently state that they would win. Instead, I'm looking at both teams to score. Aston Villa saw both teams to score in their match against West Ham in the previous round, whereas Spurs could very well have seen both teams score in the match against Tamworth, as the National League side had multiple attempts to score in their last FA Cup match. Taking a look at the head-to-head record, the previous meeting between these two sides, as well as 3 of the last 4 Premier League encounters have seen both teams to score. With all of this in mind, I'm going to back both teams to score for a half stake in bet number 1. Our second selection sees Birmingham playing host to Newcastle, and Birmingham, they reached this round of the Cup by beating League 1 Lincoln in their last match. The Blues got off to a hot start, with Yokohama scoring in the first minute of the match before Lyndon Dykes scored one of the goals of the round to make it 2-0. The Scot chested down the long ball forwards, playing it over the defender and then lifting the ball over the goalkeeper from about 25 yards in what was probably one of the goals of the round, if not the tournament this season. Lincoln did peg back a goal in their own right in stoppage time thanks to a penalty, with the scores finishing 2-1 to Birmingham. That victory made it 3 wins in the FA Cup for Birmingham, playing aside from the National League, League 1 and League 2, winning all with relative ease. This match against Newcastle will be the biggest challenge they've faced this season to date. Speaking of Newcastle, the Toon beat Bromley in their third round matchup. Despite the National League side opening the scores after just 8 minutes, the result was never really in doubt as Newcastle piled on a lot of pressure on Bromley in the game, and they eventually broke. Goals from Miley, Gordon and Ossola made it 3-1 to the Magpies. This was their only win of the FA Cup due to Newcastle entering in the last round, but they will be optimistic of picking up a good result here on the road. When we look at the head-to-head record, the last match between these sides came almost 8 years ago now. Newcastle spent 1 year in the Championship in the 2016-17 season, and this was a season where these sides actually faced off 4 times. Newcastle won the first encounter by 4-1 at St James Park, before a goalless draw at St Andrews in the league. They also faced off in the FA Cup, and after a 1-1 draw at St Andrews, Newcastle won the replay by 3-1. My prediction for today's game is that both sides are going well in their respective leagues, Birmingham looking for an immediate return to the Championship, whereas Newcastle are eyeing up Champions League football once again. Despite the league form, both of these sides will want to give a good account of themselves in the domestic cups, with Newcastle keen on ending that long drought without a trophy. To that end, I think they will rotate against the League 1 side, but they'll be strong enough to pick up the win. Newcastle to win for a half stake here in bet number 2. Our third pick is another all-Premier League affair as Manchester United play host to Leicester. And United, they needed penalties to get past Arsenal in their last cup match. After hanging on in the first half, Bruno Fernandes put the Red Devils ahead shortly after the interval, but the game would be turned on its head as Diogo Dalot was sent off after the hour mark for a second yellow card offence, before Arsenal equalised through Gabriel from a set piece. Later on in the 72nd minute, Odegaard looked to make it 2-1, but Bayindir's goalkeeping heroics pushed the match to extra time. In that extra half an hour, it was all Arsenal, but they failed to capitalise on their chances, and Bayindir continued his hot form in the shootout, where United won 5 penalties to 3. They host a Leicester side who battered QPR in their last game. James Justin broke the deadlock after just 8 minutes, and the Foxes didn't really look back from there. Despite QPR registering twice in the first period, Leicester led at the interval by 3 goals to 2, adding another 3 goals in the second period, with a final score of 6 goals to 2. When we look at the head-to-head record, United won the last encounter by 3 goals to 0, with Ruud van Nistelrooy in the United dugout. Fernandes and Garnacho scored, with Christensen's own goal in there for good measure as well. But looking at the stats, Leicester played better than the scoreline may indicate. Longer term, that victory made it 4 wins in a row for United over Leicester, and they're going to be pretty keen on another one here today. My prediction for today's game is that with the Foxes threatened by relegation, I think all of the resources that they have will be spent on the Everton and Arsenal matches either side of this fixture. Whereas for United, the FA Cup is fast becoming their only way of earning European football this year, so I'm expecting them to go very strong here and pick up a result. Manchester United to win for a half stake in bet number 3. Our fourth and final selection in today's episode sees League One Wigan playing host to Premier League Fulham. And Wigan, they picked up a win in their last round of the FA Cup against fellow League One side Mansfield. An Asgard double saw the Latics progress in normal time, which was a welcome change to their previous fixtures, which needed extra time in both fixtures for them to come out on top. Unlike Wigan, Fulham have only played 1 match in the FA Cup, and that was against Watford. After the scores were tied up 1-1 at half-time, Jimenez, Anderson and Castagnier helped the Cottagers to a convincing 4-1 win, in which, looking at the numbers, Fulham made their Premier League quality to show. When we look at the head-to-head records, these sides have not faced off since July of 2020, with the scores finishing 1-1 thanks to contributions of Kiefer Moore and Neeskens Cabano. Since then, it's been all change for Fulham, with only Tom Kearney remaining from the Fulham squad of 2020. My prediction for today's game is that Fulham are not concerned with relegation at all, but they are pretty much stuck at mid-table in the Premier League. I don't think they're going to have a better chance to qualify for European football or own a trophy this season other than the FA Cup, so expect them to take this game very seriously. Wigan are also around mid-table, but in League One, and I don't think they'll be optimistic of a result here. I'm going to back Fulham for a half stake in the final bet of today's episode. So there you go, 4 selections in today's episode, but I don't know the odds just yet. Please check out the pinned comment down below. If you have made it to this point in the video, please drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more content. And as always, have yourself a lovely day.